You don't belong here. This food isn't meant for people like you. That's what a smug 16-year-old yelled as he yanked my groceries out of my cart at Fresh Mart. His mother, a full-blown suburban tyrant, she immediately whipped out her phone and called the police in a frenzy. "There's a dangerous man here. Send 20 units." She shrieked like she ran the entire city. I started to regret ever walking into that store, but here's the thing: she had absolutely no clue who I was. All those officers she demanded, they answered to me. And once she realized that, let's just say karma showed up right on schedule. I was having a pretty average Thursday afternoon, standing in line at Fresh Mart with a cart full of fresh meat and organic veggies. I had been living in Oakwood Estates for 2 weeks now quietly, on purpose. Though I was appointed police chief 6 months ago, I wanted time to get to know the neighborhood without all the fanfare. Wearing casual jeans and a plain t-shirt, I looked like any other shopper. That's how I liked it. The cashier was halfway through scanning my groceries when I heard loud footsteps behind me and the unmistakable sound of teenage arrogance. Before I could turn, a pale hand reached over and snatched my organic tomatoes off the belt. "You don't need this fancy stuff," said the boy, no older than 16. Wearing the kind of smug grin that only comes from growing up without consequences. I didn't know his name at the time, Tyler Thompson, but there he stood, gripping my produce like he'd just claimed victory. "This isn't for your kind," he sneered. "You should stick to the normal aisles." His voice cracked slightly, giving away the boy behind the bravado. I stayed composed. "The training does that to you." Calmly, I held out my hand and said, "Son, those are mine." "Hand them back, please." Direct, controlled, no drama. But Tyler wasn't interested in calm. He recoiled with fake shock, clutching the tomatoes to his chest like I'd attacked him. "Mom, Mom!" he shouted dramatically, his voice echoing through the store. "This man is harassing me. Someone help." Most shoppers raised eyebrows and continued on with their day, clearly recognizing the theatrics. But one woman came rushing over like she'd been waiting for this moment. I heard the rapid click of designer heels before I saw her. Patricia Thompson stormed around the corner like a designer-clad tornado. Her expensive bag swung wildly as she swooped in, dragging her son behind her and shielding him like he'd been mugged. "Don't you dare touch my son!" she shrieked, phone already in hand. "I'm calling the police right now." She was trembling less from fear, more from imagined righteousness. "Yes, hello, this is an emergency," she cried into the phone, instantly producing fake sobs. "There's a violent man threatening my teenage son at Fresh Mart on Oak Street. He's about 6 feet tall and looks aggressive. Send help." Noah sent 10 units, Noah 20, and call SWAT. Other shoppers had their phones out too, but they weren't dialing anyone. They were recording, and I couldn't help but notice the irony. Her attempt to paint me as the villain was being documented from every angle. I quietly pulled out my phone and hit record, making sure her voice and accusations were clearly caught on audio. "Ma'am," I said calmly, using my professional tone, "your son took my groceries and made some offensive remarks. I only asked for them back." She turned on me, livid. "Shut up. You people are always the problem, always playing the victim in neighborhoods like this." She pointed at me, finger shaking. "I'm on the HOA board. I run this place. You'll wish you never set foot in this store." The security guard, clearly out of his depth, stood frozen at the entrance. I gave him a slight nod to let him know everything was under control, then turned back to Patricia. "And what neighborhood would that be?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Oakwood Estates," she announced, as if the name itself was sacred. "The nice part of town. You clearly don't belong." The grin that spread across my face must have startled her, because she stepped back slightly, keeping Tyler close. "Well, that's funny," I replied. "I moved into Oakwood Estates 2 weeks ago." Her expression drained of all color. She looked like she might pass out right there in the produce aisle. "That's not possible," she stammered. "I would know. I know everyone in the neighborhood." Tyler, still holding the tomatoes like a trophy, looked from her to me, uncertainty starting to crack his earlier confidence. I let the silence hang before gesturing toward my groceries. "Mind if I finish checking out? I'd hate for the ice cream to melt." Her mouth opened and closed, completely speechless. Then, grabbing Tyler's arm, she started backing away, eyes locked on mine. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You'll see, the police will be here any minute, and then you'll be sorry." As they turned to leave, Tyler hurled the tomatoes onto the belt with exaggerated force, one of them bouncing onto the floor with a soft splat. I picked it up, paid for my groceries, and left the store knowing full well this wasn't the last time I'd see Patricia Thompson. She had just picked the wrong person to go to war with. And she had no clue. Later that evening, the look on Patricia's face when she pulled into her driveway and saw me stepping out of the house directly across the street, worth remembering forever. Her grocery bag slipped from her hand, cans rolling across her freshly trimmed lawn in slow motion. She stood there frozen, her mouth hanging open like she'd just seen a ghost. "No, no, no, no," she shrieked, the sound echoing down the quiet suburban street. "This cannot be happening." I gave her a warm wave as I casually strolled to the mailbox, acting as if our little episode at the grocery store never occurred. "Gorgeous evening, don't you think, neighbor?" I called out, cheerfully. Her face turned the shade of purple that probably matched her blood pressure as she scrambled to gather her scattered groceries from the lawn, shooting me a death glare with every can she picked up. That night marked the official start of her campaign. At exactly 2 a.m., music blasted from the Thompson home at a volume that could have woken a graveyard. Through her living room window, I spotted Patricia, phone in hand, likely live streaming to some closed neighborhood group. "Time to teach this intruder a lesson," she shouted over the deafening music. "This is what happens when outsiders think they can move into our community." I picked up my phone, hit record, and texted my deputy with a simple message: "Phase 1 in motion." "They're biting." By 3 a.m., the music finally died down, only to be replaced by the soft, wet splat of eggs hitting my front door. Tyler's throwing skills left much to be desired. Most eggs smacked against the siding and slid down in messy streaks that I knew would be a pain to wash off. At 4 a.m., their 3 dogs mysteriously got loose and galloped straight into my yard, where they proceeded to dig up my freshly planted flower beds and relieve themselves right on my front steps. I observed everything from behind my curtains while my security system captured every second in crisp high definition. Patricia stood on her porch in a silky bathrobe, half-heartedly calling out to the dogs. "Oh no," she cried in the most disingenuous voice imaginable. "How did they get out? Bad dogs. Come back." She was still recording, clearly thinking this little performance gave her plausible deniability. What she didn't realize was that all she was doing was handing me evidence. The following morning, I was outside watering what remained of my flowers, calm as ever. The egg mess had already been documented and scrubbed clean, the dog waste was gone, and the garden was patched up at temporarily. Patricia came marching across the street like she was leading a protest, but her confidence faltered slightly when she saw me so relaxed. "You don't belong here," she snapped, stopping just short of stepping onto my lawn. "This is a family neighborhood, a respectable place. We have standards here." I kept watering the flowers, not even bothering to look up as I replied, "It's a beautiful area. I can understand why you'd want to protect it from people who throw eggs and let their dogs destroy others' property." Her face reddened, but she wasn't done. "I don't know what you're suggesting," she said sharply, "but I'll make your life a living nightmare until you leave." I turned to her with a friendly smile. "Ma'am, you already started. Feel free to continue. I'm recording everything for the record." She didn't miss the implication, and her eyes darted to the security camera by my front door. "Ha!" she scoffed. "You think that is going to protect you? One little camera?" She spun around and stomped back to her house, pulling out her phone mid-idea, probably to rally her next move. That night, I watched from the comfort of my study as Tyler snuck across the street with a baseball bat. He smashed the visible camera in 3 aggressive swings. Then, he pulled out a spray can. What he painted on my garage door was appalling, racist, hateful, and vile. I won't even repeat it, but the twist, he proudly recorded the whole thing, captioned it got his camera. "Now the loser has no proof. Mom's gonna love this," and posted it to what he believed was a private account. What neither he nor Patricia realized was that the destroyed camera was a $30 dummy from the internet. The actual surveillance system was a network of hidden cameras inside my porch lights, the mailbox, the doorbell, even a decorative rock near my walkway. Every angle was covered, and every single one of their actions was caught on video. As I sat reviewing the footage, my phone buzzed. It was Linda, my next-door neighbor, whispering into the receiver. "Marcusa Broken Bar, I don't mean to stick my nose in, but to Broken Bar, Patricia doesn't know what you do, does she?" I chuckled lightly. "No, Linda, she doesn't, and I'd like to keep it that way for now." There was a pause, followed by a sigh. "She's run off 3 families in the past 2 years, Linda said quietly. "All of them minorities. Be careful. She's nastier than she looks." I ended the call and pulled up the neighborhood incident reports. Sure enough, 3 families had moved out in the past 24 months, all minorities, all citing a hostile environment. Patricia Thompson had spent years terrorizing this community from behind the safety of her HOA title. She thought that made her untouchable. She was about to find out just how wrong she was. My phone lit up again, another message from my deputy. "Chief Washington, should we move in?" I typed my response quickly. "Not yet. Let her keep going. She hasn't hit bottom." Patricia thought she was waging psychological warfare. What she didn't realize was that she was playing checkers against someone who'd been playing chess for 2 decades. The only question left was, just how deep would she dig her own grave? And what was I waiting for? Diaresis Sadilla, drop a comment if you think Patricia is about to get everything she deserves. The Oakwood Estates Community Center was packed at a standing room only for what Patricia had theatrically declared an emergency meeting on neighborhood security. She'd gone all in, emails, flyers on doors, even personal calls to every homeowner she could reach. The result, a nervous, confused crowd, half convinced that a serious threat had infiltrated their cul-de-sac. I arrived 15 minutes early, claiming a seat in the back so I could watch the show unfold. At the front of the room stood Patricia in her sharpest blazer, organizing papers and whispering instructions to Tyler, who lounged in the front row looking half smug, half bored. A few board members flanked her, including the HOA president, Richard, an elderly man who looked like he regretted ever running for the position. Right at 7 p.m., Patricia switched on the projector and tapped a laser pointer against her palm. "Thank you all for coming," she began, voice tight with fake emotion. "I've called this urgent meeting because our community is under threat from within." She clicked to the first slide, a grainy zoomed-in image of me watering my plants, clearly taken through her window. "This man," she said, pointing as though I were a mugshot on a most wanted poster, "moved in 2 weeks ago under suspicious circumstances. He claims to have purchased the Morrison property, but has anyone verified that? Has anyone checked his background, his references?" Her voice pitched higher with each rhetorical question. "And just yesterday," she continued, "he attacked my teenage son at Fresh Mart. Poor Tyler was simply buying groceries when this man turned violent." Tyler nodded vigorously. "He looked at me really scary," he added. "I thought he was gonna hurt me." A few people shifted awkwardly. Some nodded. One man muttered something about property values. I made a mental note of his face. Patricia flipped to the next slide. Dia edited security footage from her own cameras. Conveniently, it cut out everything Tyler had done. "I have proof of his behavior," she said, her voice triumphant. The video showed me standing silently in my driveway, then jumping forward to me walking into my house. "He's always watching, always lurking." Her tone turned conspiratorial. As a board member, I motioned to begin removal proceedings. "He doesn't belong here. Who's with me?" About a dozen hands shot up immediately. Many others stayed firmly in their laps. Richard cleared his throat. "Patricia Broken Bar, we can't just force someone out of their home without due cause. There are laws." "Laws?" Patricia snapped, voice rising. "What about the laws that protect our children, our homes, our way of life?" The dog whistle wasn't even subtle anymore, it was a siren. I stood from my seat. The room turned as one. Patricia's face went white, then red, then white again. "Thank you for the invitation, Patricia," I said as I walked toward the front. "I didn't invite you," she hissed, clutching her laser pointer like she might jab me with it. "HOA bylaws state that all residents can attend open meetings," I replied, pulling out my phone. "I've read the entire handbook." "Very enlightening." Richard looked like someone had just opened a window in a stuffy room. "He's right," he said. "Mr. Broken Bar, Washington," I said with a smile. Marcus Washington. I held up my phone, and since we're sharing evidence tonight, I have a few clips I think the community deserves to see. Patricia opened her mouth to object, but Richard cut her off. Fair is fair. I connected my phone to the projector and waited as the screen flickered to life. Patricia's hands trembled slightly. Let's start with yesterday at Fresh Mart, I said. The footage played in silence. Tyler was seen stealing from my cart, hurling slurs, and faking injury while Patricia screamed into her phone, demanding every officer they've got. Gasps filled the room. That's fake, Patricia blurted. Deepfake garbage. I ignored her and cued the next video. This was last night. Tyler appeared on screen, crossing the street with a baseball bat, smashing the decoy camera, then spray painting vile, racist slurs across my garage while Patricia stood on her porch watching, not even pretending to intervene. The crowd was dead silent. When the hateful words came into view, people began to shift in their seats. One man in a business suit abruptly stood and walked toward the door, muttering loud enough for everyone to hear, "I'm not being part of this circus. I can't be associated with this," a man in a business suit muttered as he made for the exit. My company has diversity initiatives. A woman who had been nodding along with Patricia earlier turned on her, face flushed with anger. You told us he was dangerous. That he threatened Tyler. You never said Tyler did that. At the front of the room, Richard the HOA president grabbed the mic with trembling hands, his forehead slick with sweat. Patricia, he said, voice cracking, these are serious criminal acts. The HOA could be held liable for failing to address hate-based incidents in our community. Our insurance doesn't cover this. In the corner, the HOA's attorney, who had stayed silent until now, was scribbling furiously, shaking his head with visible panic. Tyler had practically sunk into his chair, trying to become invisible. His face was beet red as whispers and snickers rippled through the younger crowd. Yo, someone stage whispered, is that Tyler from Oakwood High? Didn't he get rejected by Keshaw Johnson last month? Oh my God, Patricia, what have you done? Someone else shouted, World Star. A younger resident yelled gleefully, already uploading the footage online. The room unraveled into chaos, shouting, disbelief, and, in some corners, shame. Patricia's loyalists went eerily quiet. A few slipped toward the exit without looking back. This is entrapment, Patricia shrieked, her voice sharp over the noise. He set us up. He's probably a criminal, some drug dealer. Someone check his background. Richard pounded his gavel in a futile attempt to restore order. After several tense moments, the room quieted just enough. I call a motion, he said firmly, to determine whether Marcus Washington may remain in good standing within this neighborhood. The vote came in, 15-12 in my favor, with several abstentions. I didn't need a landslide, I just needed the win. Patricia's face twisted into something between fury and disbelief. You're all traitors, she screamed. I've protected this neighborhood for years, and this is how you repay me? She turned on me, finger trembling. You think you're so smart? Who do you think you are? I stood slowly, letting the silence wrap around the moment like a curtain before a show. That's a good question, Patricia, I said softly, but tonight's not the night for that answer. I packed up my phone, headed toward the exit and paused just before leaving. Oh, and Patricia, I said without turning around, you might want to look into who signs the paychecks for those 20 squad cars you wanted dispatched. The silence that followed me out was deafening. What did he mean by paychecks? Was Marcus connected to the police, or was he bluffing? Diaresis Sedilla type A. Who is he? If you're dying to know Marcus's real identity. The next morning, Patricia launched a full-scale digital blitz. By 6 a.m., she'd posted in at least 10 community Facebook and Nextdoor groups, each message more frantic and unhinged than the last. Dangerous individual in Oakwood Estates. One headline read, under the same blurry photo of me watering plants, another accused me of running a drug operation out of my garage. A third warned I was casing homes for burglary. If the posts weren't so dangerous, they'd have been comical. My phone buzzed. Linda, have you seen what she's posting? This is insane. I scrolled through the flood of lies, taking screenshots for the growing evidence file. But Patricia's biggest misstep wasn't a Facebook post, it was her son. Like most teenagers, Tyler couldn't resist documenting everything. He'd been recording their harassment campaign using a fake social media account, thinking he was clever. He wasn't. He'd forgotten to disable location tagging. Every post was geotagged to their exact address. One video showed Patricia in the background, coaching him like a bad director on a failing set. "Post more," she said. "Make him look dangerous. People need to believe he's a threat." Another clip captured her mid-phone call. While Tyler mugged for the camera, her voice came through crystal clear. "I'll pay you $2,000 cash if you write an article about him. Just say he's got a criminal record or something." But the final nail came that evening. Patricia, thinking she was being slick, used a burner phone to call a friend who ran a small local blog. She stepped out onto her front porch to make the call, assuming it was private. What she didn't know, my home security system includes audio recording and the mid-range ISA broken bar impressive. Her voice played back cleanly on the recording. "Listen, Janet. I need you to write something about my neighbor, the black guy I told you about." There was a pause. Then, "I don't care if you don't have evidence," Patricia snapped. "Just look at him. People will believe it. They always do when it's a broken bar, you know. Someone like him." Another pause. "Yes, $2,000 cash. Just make him sound dangerous, a criminal or whatever works." A long silence followed before Janet finally responded, her tone cold. "Patricia, broken bar. I run a legitimate blog. I can't just fabricate stories. That's defamation. I could lose everything." Patricia's voice sharpened. Patricia's voice turned razor sharp, laced with venom and manipulation. "It's not fabricating," she said coolly. "Not when everyone already knows it's true. Just look at him. People want to believe it. They always have." Then, as if flipping a switch, her tone softened into a syrupy sweetness. "Besides," she cooed, "remember your custody case, Janet? Remember when I stood up in court and swore you were a wonderful mother?" A pause. "It'd be such a shame if I suddenly a broken bar remembered things differently." Silence. "Patricia," Janet finally said, voice tight, "that's blackmail." "It's friendship," Patricia hissed. "Real friends help each other. $2,000 in cash, or I might recall a few things about your ex-husband's accusations. You choose." When the call ended, Patricia stepped outside, self-satisfied until she saw Linda's daughter laughing with my golden retriever through the fence. The little girl giggled as the dog gently licked her fingers. Patricia exploded from her porch like a storm cloud. "Madison, get away from there. Don't touch that dangerous animal." The child fled, sobbing, while Patricia screamed at my house, "Keep your vicious beasts away from our children. I'll call animal control." Inside, I sat in my home office, watching it all unfold on my security system's multi-angle feed. Every word I recorded in crystal clear, high-definition audio. Every threat, every lie, every desperate attempt at control was preserved, encrypted, and backed up in multiple locations. But that night, the cost of her campaign became personal. Spray-painted in bright red across my windshield, "Go back where you came from." On the doorstep, a dead rat. Beside it, a note, "You're next." For the first time since this began, I felt something close to fatigue. Not fear and ever fear, but exhaustion. Exhaustion from fighting this same hate, again and again. In 2024, I stared at a photo on my phone. Sarah smiled back at me, my late wife, radiant and free, from the last vacation we took together. "You always said to take the high road," I whispered. "But sometimes, baby, a broken bar, the high road leads right off a cliff. And someone's got to stop people like Patricia from pushing others off it." Then my phone buzzed. A text from the deputy chief. "Boss, there's pressure from city council over the situation in your neighborhood. Some members want you suspended while they investigate." My jaw clenched. Patricia had deeper connections than I'd realized. She was pulling strings. Another text followed. "What do you want us to do?" I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I typed back, "Schedule the press conference. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., City Hall. Mandatory attendance for all department heads." The reply came instantly. "Are you sure? Once you go public, there's no walking it back." I smiled faintly. "I'm sure." "It's time." That night, while the city slept, I didn't. I spent the hours combing through every screenshot, every video clip, every call recording. Patricia thought she was winning. She'd seen the announcement about the upcoming press conference and assumed it was her moment of glory. She posted in all her groups, "Come to City Hall tomorrow. The police chief is finally addressing my complaints. We're going to expose this criminal once and for all." She made calls, mobilized her loyalists. "Bring signs," she urged. "Make sure the media sees us. We need to show we won't tolerate dangerous people in our neighborhood." Tyler, ever helpful, uploaded a video of his mother practicing her speech in the mirror. "Chief, this man has been terrorizing my family. He's a threat to public safety." Patricia was so giddy with her perceived victory, she didn't pause to wonder why the press conference had been scheduled so quickly, a broken bar, or why the announcement used my full name. Later that night, still unable to sleep, I scrolled through my case file page after page of harassment and intimidation. Patricia Thompson had spent years bullying anyone who didn't fit her image of Oakwood Estates. 3 families had left, dozens more suffered in silence. But tomorrow, karma was showing up in uniform. As I finally leaned back in my chair, my phone lit up one last time. "Marcus, I hope you know what you're doing." The mayor. I smiled in the dark. "I know exactly what I'm doing." Patricia had demanded 20 police units, insisted the chief personally show up, called for justice. Tomorrow, she'd get all 3, just not the way she expected. She had no idea how much tomorrow's press conference would change. "Where's the chief?" Patricia demanded, turning to the woman beside her. "I need to speak with him before this starts. He has to know what kind of criminal he's dealing with." At precisely 3 p.m., I entered through the side door, wearing my full dress uniform. Every medal, every ribbon, 20 years of service worn like armor. The room shifted. The press corps straightened in their seats, cameras pivoting toward me. They sensed something was about to break wide open. Patricia spotted me and immediately stood, finger pointing, voice shrill. "That's him. That's the man I've been reporting. Officer, arrest him now." Reporters turned, confused. A few murmured. Security started toward her, but I raised a hand to stop them. Without a word to Patricia, I walked directly to the podium. My steps echoed against the marble like a drumbeat. I could feel her confusion swirling behind me. "What are you doing?" she screeched. "You can't be up there." "Someone stop him." "Where is the chief?" "I demand to speak to the chief." I adjusted the microphone, met her eyes calmly, and spoke to the room. "Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Today, I'm addressing recent and deeply troubling events in the Oakwood Estates neighborhood." Patricia was nearly shaking with rage. "He's lying. He's impersonating an officer. This is illegal. Someone arrest him." I didn't even glance in her direction. "Before I begin," I said, "I want to share some evidence gathered over the last 2 weeks. What you're about to see may be disturbing, but it is necessary for our city, and for the truth." The lights dimmed. A screen behind me flickered to life. The first clip, a social media video of Tyler, with Patricia visible in the background, instructing him to make me appear threatening. The room fell into stunned silence, broken only by the furious clatter of reporters typing. Next, audio from her call to a local blogger filled the space. "Just look at him," Patricia's voice echoed. "People will believe it. They always do, especially when it's, someone like him." Gasps rippled through the room. Then, video of my garage being vandalized. Tyler, unmistakably clear, spray painting a slur in red across the door. And finally, the original 911 recording. Patricia, breathless and hysterical, demanding 20 police units because I'd asked for my tomatoes at the grocery store. The lights came up slowly. The silence that followed was absolute. Every camera turned toward Patricia. Her face had drained of color, a sickly green settling beneath her makeup. "This is fake," she said hoarsely. "All of it. He set me up." It's no doubt her voice faltered and broke. I reached into my coat pocket. Every breath in the room seemed to stop. Then, with a single, deliberate motion, I pulled out my badge and laid it on the podium. The sound echoed like a gavel. "Ms. Thompson," I said clearly into the mic. 2 weeks ago, you demanded to know who I was. You called 911 and insisted on speaking to the police chief. I let that hang in the air for a beat. "Well, a broken bar. I'm the chief of every single officer you demanded." I looked straight at her. "I am Police Chief Marcus Washington." The words struck like a thunderclap, A beat of stunned silence, then pandemonium. Flashbulbs exploded. Reporters leapt to their feet. Patricia's supporters backed away from her like she'd burst into flames. Someone yelled. She called the cops on the police chief, and the phrase instantly turned into a chant. Patricia's knees buckled. She collapsed in a heap of designer fabric and disbelief. Tyler tried to bolt, but tripped spectacularly over a folding chair, crashing to the floor in what would become the second most viewed video of the day. As paramedics rushed in, I remained composed at the podium. "Patricia Thompson," I continued, "once you're stable, you'll be taken into custody on charges including filing false police reports, criminal harassment, threatening behavior, and conspiracy to commit defamation." I leaned forward, tone crisp. "You have the right to remain silent. For your sake, I suggest you finally try it." As they loaded her onto a stretcher, half conscious and muttering, "You a broken bar, you can't be broken bar," I leaned down so only she could hear. "Ma'am," I whispered, "I literally run the entire department. Every officer, every call, every badge." Tyler, now cuffed and weeping, was escorted behind her. The room was in chaos, media scrambling, voices shouting, phones ringing non-stop. A young journalist turned to her senior colleague, eyes wide with awe. "This is better than Watergate," she breathed. "Did you see her face when he dropped the badge?" The moment I placed the badge on the podium, Patricia's supporters scattered like cockroaches in the light. One woman desperately tried to hide her "We Stand with Patricia" sign behind her back as cameras swiveled in her direction. In the VIP section, the mayor loosened his tie and leaned toward his aide with a whisper that was barely subtle. "Draft a statement now. Distance the city from her. Say she never represented our values." Meanwhile, Tyler stood in cuffs, tears streaming down his face. "Moma broken bar, you said he was nobody. You said we owned this town. You said the police would take our side." The young officer escorting him gave a slow shake of the head. "Kid, your mom just spent 2 weeks harassing our boss. Nobody owns Chief Washington." By the time I wrapped the press conference, the #Karen called the chief was already trending. But this wasn't the end, it was just the opening act. Patricia Thompson was about to learn that calling the cops on the police chief was only the beginning of her downfall. Within 24 hours, her life unraveled with stunning speed and public humiliation. The video of her fainting hit over 100 million views in 2 days, spawning a tidal wave of memes, remixes, and reaction videos. Everything from classical mashups to death metal covers featured her infamous collapse. Her employer, a luxury real estate firm obsessed with image and inclusion, released a statement before sunset. "We do not condone discrimination of any kind." Patricia Thompson's employment has been terminated, effective immediately. Just like that, the self-appointed queen of the neighborhood became a national punchline. Even her former allies abandoned her. People who had sung her praises just a week earlier now claimed they'd always suspected something was off. Then came the legal hammer. Patricia was hit with 4 criminal charges. Her attorney managed to avoid jail time, but the consequences were far from mild. 2 years of probation, $50,000 in fines, and 500 hours of mandatory community service, including racial sensitivity training. The judge, a sharp-tongued woman with no tolerance for nonsense, delivered the final blow. "You wanted the police involved, Miss Thompson. Now you'll have their full attention for the next 2 years." Tyler didn't fare much better in juvenile court. 90 days in detention, 500 hours of community service, and permanent expulsion from school. His dreams of college vanished the moment hate vandalism was added to his record. During sentencing, he made a last-ditch attempt to throw his mother under the bus. "She made me do it. She said if I didn't help her, she'd take away my car, my phone, everything. She told me we were protecting our home." The judge, a seasoned veteran with 30 years on the bench, didn't blink. "You're 16, she said. Old enough to know that spray painting slurs isn't protecting anything. You made your own choices." As they exited the courtroom, Tyler was overheard asking his public defender, "Is my life really over? Will any college accept me?" The lawyer exhaled wearily. "It's not over, but son, you've made your path a hell of a lot harder. This will follow you." Patricia, meanwhile, was still trying to play the victim during her separate hearing. "This is unfair," she sniffled. "He targeted me because I'm white and successful." The prosecutor, calm, composed Asian American woman didn't even flinch. She simply placed 57 pieces of documented evidence on the table. "Ma'am, you targeted him. We have you on video. You posted the videos. You quite literally built the case against yourself." That same week, the Oakwood Estates HOA held an emergency board meeting, a one Patricia wasn't invited to. The vote to remove her was unanimous, even among her former friends. "She's made us all look like bigots," one board member grumbled. "My property value's gonna tank because of her." Ironic, considering property values were all Patricia had ever cared about. 6 months later, the house she once ruled over like royalty was foreclosed on. The buyers, a lovely black family, Dr. Johnson, his wife, and their 3 children. Linda called me the day they moved in, barely containing her glee. "You should see her face when she goes to get her mail from the P.O. box," she said between fits of laughter. "She looks like someone's force-feeding her lemons." But perhaps the most brutal fallout was online. Someone created a video game called Karen vs. the Chief, where players tried to avoid calling the cops on increasingly obvious authority figures. Her fainting video, remixed into no fewer than 50 songs. My personal favorite was a techno anthem that sampled her infamous shriek, "Send 20 police cars." Tyler's fall turned into a TikTok challenge, the Tyler Tumble. Teens across the country reenacted his flailing exit to the beat of trending audio, and the media had a field day. CNN, the BBC, everyone ran the story of the woman who called the cops on the police chief and ended up getting schooled by the very system she tried to weaponize. Ellen joked about it in her monologue. Trevor Noah did an entire segment. A documentary even premiered on a major streaming platform, complete with dramatic reenactments and ominous music. Patricia, desperate to salvage her reputation, launched a GoFundMe titled "Victim of Police Entrapment, Help Me Fight Back." The description read like a fever dream of wild accusations, unhinged conspiracy theories, and barely disguised racist dog whistles. It raised exactly $3.50 all from Tyler before being taken down for violating the platform's terms of service. Her final public appearance was a shaky Facebook Live video, filmed from her half-empty living room. Boxes were stacked behind her, ready for the move. "This is all a setup," she ranted, her voice high and frayed. "I'm not racist. I have a black dentist. I shop at stores owned by a broken bar those people." The comment section was merciless. "Sure, Karen. Cope harder. Cry more. Racist. This you?" Followed by screenshots of her most vile social media posts. I never gloated publicly. My response was measured and professional. But privately, I'll admit I watched the fainting video more than once. The money from the civil lawsuit was donated to youth programs centered on diversity and inclusion. I launched a community policing initiative with open forums and casual town halls, creating real dialogue between officers and residents. I even rolled out new departmental training, Assumptions and Authority, How Bias Affects Policing. When reporters asked about Patricia, I kept my answer simple. This was never about one person. It's about making sure every member of our community feels safe, seen, and respected regardless of what they look like. But my favorite moment came when the reporter asked if I had any regrets about how it all went down. I kept a straight face. My only regret is that she asked for 20 squad cars, and I could only send 2 to arrest her. Budget constraints, you know. 1 year later, fate threw us together again. It was a beautiful spring afternoon, and I was doing one of my regular downtown patrols, something I still did weekly to stay connected to the people I served. I stopped by a local park to check on the community service crews, and that's when I saw him, wearing an orange vest, bent over with a grabber tool, picking up trash. Tyler Thompson. He looked nothing like the smug, entitled kid who once stole tomatoes off my porch. He was thinner, quieter, older, not just in age, but in his eyes. When he looked up and saw me, he froze, like a deer caught in a spotlight. His hand clenched the trash bag until his knuckles turned white. "Chief Washington," he said, barely above a whisper. I just stood there for a moment, watching him. Then his eyes welled up, and the wall he'd been holding crumbled. "I'm sorry," he blurted, the words tumbling out like floodwaters. "I'm so sorry. I was stupid. I was racist. I was everything wrong with this world." The tears came fast, unstoppable. My mom taught me to think that way, but I chose to act on it. I chose to hurt you. I ruined my life and I deserve it. A nearby supervisor started walking over, alarmed by the commotion, but I waved them off. You're right, I said quietly. Your mother taught you, but you chose to spray paint my home. You chose to post those videos. You made those decisions. Tyler nodded miserably, swiping at his tears with a dusty sleeve. I know, I hate myself. I destroyed everything. My future's gone. No, I said firmly, and he looked up in surprise. It's not gone, it's damaged. There's a difference. Gone means it can't be fixed. Damaged means it'll take work, a lot of it. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a card. He stared at it like it might bite him. Second Chance Youth Program, I explained. They work with teens who have records of helping them rebuild, apply to college, find jobs. Nothing would be easy, but it wasn't impossible. His hand shook as he took the card. Why would you help me? He asked, voice cracking. After everything I did, I thought for a moment. Because hate taught you to hate. Your mom fed you poison from day one. Maybe it's time someone offered you something different. He clutched the card like a lifeline. I don't deserve this. Probably not, I said honestly, watching him flinch. But grace isn't about what you deserve. It's about believing that people can change you if they truly want to. I do, Tyler said, nodding so hard I thought his head might fall off. God, yes. I volunteer at the food bank now. I'm trying. I just want to make it right. I studied him for another moment, then nodded back. Then call that number. Do the work. I turned to walk away, but paused. And Tyler, I said over my shoulder. He looked up at me hopefully. Don't waste this chance. I told him, you won't get another one from me. As I walked away, I heard him whisper, thank you. I didn't respond, just kept walking. Redemption wasn't mine to give. All I could offer was a door. Whether he stepped through it was up to him. Later that evening, at the annual Unity Canal, a beloved tradition in Oakwood Estates, I was manning the grill when Linda walked up, balancing a plate in one hand and sweet tea in the other. You know, she said casually, Tyler Thompson volunteers at the food bank now. So I've heard, I replied, flipping a burger. His mother still blames you for everything, she added, posts about it on those fringe websites, says you're part of some big plan to replace white people. I chuckled, shaking my head. Some people would rather drown in hate than admit they're wrong. Linda nodded slowly, then she glanced across the park and gestured, but some people learn. I followed her gaze and saw Tyler in the distance, serving plates of food to a line of families, black, white, Latino, Asiana, all waiting patiently in the summer heat. He handed a plate to a little black girl who thanked him shyly. He smiled, a real smile. Then he looked up and saw me. Our eyes met. He gave me a quiet, respectful nod. I returned it, then turned back to the grill. A boy, no more than 7 or 8, tugged on my apron. Mr. Police Chief, he said, beaming. My mom says you're a hero. She said you stopped a bad lady. I knelt down to his level, smiling. I'm not a hero, buddy, I said. I just did my job. You know who real heroes are? People who choose to change when they realize they were wrong. That takes more courage than anything I've ever done. The boy nodded seriously, like I'd just handed him a sacred truth, then scampered off to rejoin the game of tag happening under the trees. I stood up and looked around. Families of every color laughing together, kids racing through the grass, the smell of barbecue drifting on the breeze. No one seemed to care about who belonged to what neighborhood, what race, what religion, just people together. And these a broken bar. This was exactly what Patricia had feared. This unity, this mixing, this joy, it was proof her worldview had already lost. That night, back in my office, I pulled out the photo of Sarah Agana, the one I always kept in my top drawer. You were right, baby, I said quietly. The high road does lead somewhere. Some folks just take longer to find it. And that, friends, is how a racist Karen called the cops a broken bar on the police chief. She asked for 20 squad cars. She got them, just not the way she expected. Patricia Thompson thought her HOA title and her white privilege made her untouchable. She thought she could harass, intimidate, and belittle anyone who didn't look like her. She thought wrong. She lost it all: her job, her home, her reputation, and even her freedom because she couldn't mind her own business and let people live. The lessons here aren't complicated, but they matter. Don't judge people by the color of their skin. You never know who you are dealing with. Your private social media isn't private when you're committing crimes. Karma is undefeated and it definitely has a sense of humor. And most importantly, hate can be taught a broken bar, but so can change. Tyler Thompson proved that even the worst of us can choose to be better if we're willing to do the work. If the story hit you in the gut, hit that subscribe button, share it with someone who needs a reminder that karma keeps receipts. Drop a comment with Karma Police if you think Patricia got exactly what she deserved. And remember, always be kind. You never know when your neighbor might turn out to be your boss's boss. Until next time, this is Chief Marcus Washington reminding you, mind your business, love your neighbors, and always think before you call the cops. Peace out. If this story made you feel just a little bit better about your own life choices, a broken bar, our work here is done. Like, share, and catch the next Anna Stories twist.